Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Remember, if you love film, gaming, or television content, please consider clicking that subscribe button because it's time to talk about the new David O. Russell film, Amsterdam. So, let's get into it. Surprisingly, this is the first David O. Russell film that I have ever seen. Sure, I've heard about his filmography with films like American Hustle, The Fighter, and Silver Linings Playbook, but at the time they were releasing, I just wasn't into film like I am now, and honestly, they weren't films that seemed all that interesting to me. I also just want to mention that David O. Russell is a pretty terrible person, and it's really surprising that this man still has a career in Hollywood. But while knowing that, I don't take that into account when reviewing or watching a movie. I can tend to separate art from the artist, but I think it is worth mentioning here because Olivia Wilde was also given a lot of criticism for her behavior on set of Don't Worry Darling, and I think to be fair, David O. Russell deserves similar criticism. Now, with all of that being said, I was actually quite excited for Amsterdam from the trailers. The style and dialogue looked very snappy and fun and just right up my alley. The cast is superb. I mean, the main trio of Christian Bale, John David Washington, and Margot Robbie are some of my favorite actors working today and have all given phenomenal performances consistently. The rest of the ensemble seemed really good too, but from the look of the trailer, they just more or less look like extended cameos. However, I am starting to think that 2022 is becoming a very weak year for film overall, because I have not been consistently disappointed for a film's release so often since 2020, which I will say was probably the worst year for films ever, due to a relatively small event that really didn't get talked about all that much. Unfortunately, Amsterdam adds to that long list now of films that have let me down in 2022 because I was thinking, despite the negative reviews, there is no way that this would be bad. Surely the critics are just going after David O. Russell here. Unfortunately, that is just not the case. Amsterdam is a flavorless film that left almost no impression on me and really didn't justify its existence all that much.
Why are you here?
Now, I don't think this film is a complete train wreck. It does have its moments, which I would like to go into first before I start going into negatives. While they have all given much better performances in the past, the main trio here are all fairly great in this film, with Christian Bale being the standout. He gives a physical performance that is a little different to what we're used to seeing from him. The negative thing about the character though for me was that right now, when I see a wacky character with goofy hair and talks the way that this character does, I can't help but feel like this is a weak version of a Wes Anderson character, and because Anderson handles those characters supremely well, that whatever may replicate it even a little feels so much more inferior in every measure.
You're not as good as you think you are.
Both John David Washington and Margot Robbie were pretty great, even if they do sleepwalk through these performances, especially Margot Robbie. She has given a lot of powerful performances and is a top 3 actress working today in my opinion. But as an Australian, I did notice that accent slip through on a few lines. In terms of the actual nuances of the performance, she may be the most interesting character in the film, and as I said, she does embody it well, but it's not on the level of some of her other performances. The rest of the ensemble are okay enough. You could say that some of the standouts in the supporting cast here were Anya Taylor-Joy and Robert De Niro. They also don't do anything close to their best performances, but they serve the film fine enough. The rest almost feel like extended cameos. Michael Shannon and Mike Myers have some real good comedic lines that do work a lot, and I really enjoyed, but they just aren't in the film all that much. Fans of Taylor Swift prepared to be disappointed because she is not in this all that much either, but she is okay in the time she has. But enough about the performances, let's get into the story itself, which is mostly really forgettable to be honest, and is very, very messy with how it presents itself, because the dialogue is supposed to be quite rapid fire the whole time. They spend too much time on details that don't really matter, and they kind of ignore details that they should focus on that seem a lot more interesting. The thing that worked the most in Amsterdam's story was the friendship between the three main characters. This is mostly present in the first act when they really showcase this, and it's by far the best moment in the entire film for me. I really wish they had continued telling the story from that angle, because I think this could have been a pretty great watch that would have led up to that excitement I had when watching the trailer. However, Amsterdam spends its time telling the most uninteresting whodunit I have seen in a while. The reveal isn't all that surprising, and it just spent too much time on those details that don't feel all that important. Everything here just always feels like a side quest, and I just couldn't help but feel bored a lot of the time. I mean, when we were getting into the third act, I was almost out of this film completely. But it would grab me for a moment here or there, and then it would go back to just being so dull. I think one thing that also really works for Amsterdam are those technical elements, because I think this is a pretty well shot movie. I personally hate the color palette that this film has in other movies, but in this case, I thought it worked really well in capturing the time period. Also, the costume and production design was truly excellent in helping create a lived-in world that also captures the time period. Overall, while Amsterdam does have its moments, I mostly thought that watching this film was the equivalent to eating a bowl of rice. It is mostly flavorless and dull, and you just feel so bored consuming it, and it could be so much better if another ingredient was thrown in. Don't get me wrong, I did like some moments, but this thing just could have been so much better. And I don't really know what more there is to say other than I was bored and kind of just want to move on from this. I'm going to give Amsterdam a 2.5 out of 5, and it will go down as one of the biggest disappointments in 2022 for me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. Tell me in the comments below, what did you think about Amsterdam? What did you think of the performances and the pacing? Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.